Hey everyone, I've been using the new 2025 M3 iPad Air for about a week now, and I've come to the conclusion this is one of the best deals that Apple offers. Now, I've been an iPad Pro user since 2018. I use one basically every day for work, for personal enjoyment, just day-to-day things, and I've also used the iPad mini extensively as well. And from all of my experience, I have to say the iPad Air is the best iPad for most people. And even though this iPad is not that different from the previous M2 Air, I still think it's pretty special. And we'll be talking about that in this video brought to you by ESR, and their incredible lineup of affordable and excellent iPad accessories. Learn more at the link in the video description. Okay, so with Apple's latest products they've released this year, the iPhone 16e and the MacBook Air M4 model, the place we've been starting out is the price, because that's what makes these devices kind of special. Now, from my understanding, this iPad is actually not any cheaper than the previous M2 Air, but what makes it special is the price in comparison to the iPad Pro. The M3 iPad Air starts at $600 USD or $550 with the education discount, while the iPad Pro starts at $1,000 USD. But the real story here is how much iPad you get for $600 versus $400 more for the Pro. Starting out with the design. Now, the design is the exact same as last year. There's really no difference here. There's no new colors, no real changes at all, but it still holds up as being a nice looking and feeling iPad. Although, I really feel like the Air name doesn't make any sense anymore because the Pro is actually the thinner and lighter model, but it is what it is. But it still feels great to hold for writing, drawing, watching videos, and also that Touch ID power button. I'm a big fan of that. Now, as I usually do, I chose the 11-inch display model over the 13-inch model because I much prefer a more compact, smaller iPad experience, but we have a 60Hz LCD display which is surrounded by somewhat thick bezels, especially next to the Pro, which has thinner bezels now, and that super bright tandem OLED screen which goes up to 120Hz refresh rate, feels fast and smooth, and yeah, the display on the Air is really nowhere near as good as the display on the Pro. It doesn't get anywhere near as bright as the Pro, doesn't have that high refresh rate display, the colors aren't as beautiful and vibrant, the blacks are not as deep and rich, but honestly, it's still great. For watching videos, editing photos, drawing, or writing, I have no complaints. The display is really the main difference and what brings up the price between this and the iPad Pro, but for most people, this iPad Air's LCD display is perfectly fine. You're also getting that 12 megapixel center stage camera on the front for FaceTime calls and just taking selfies, I guess, and a 12 megapixel camera on the back, which is good for scanning documents or taking a photo if you really have to. Now, really the only super minor design change for this iPad isn't even the iPad itself, it's the new Magic Keyboard which you can buy. It now has a row of function keys and it's a welcome change for sure. I mean, it's not really as nice as the iPad Pro's Magic Keyboard which has that aluminum top. It's just a much more refined, better design, but this is pretty good. And yes, the Magic Keyboard definitely does add some weight to the iPad as well, making it feel a lot more like you're bringing a laptop around, but I do feel like it's kind of an essential accessory at this point. You get that great trackpad, solid typing experience, and it really does transform the iPad into a device that works great for casual productivity work, as well as things like photo editing and video editing. The other accessory you're going to want for this iPad for writing and drawing is going to be, of course, a pencil. And this one actually isn't from Apple, it's from today's sponsor, ESR. And this pencil, the Geo Digital pencil, is what I've been using with this iPad since I got it. It offers many of the same features as Apple's pencil, but costs less than half the price of Apple's comparable USB-C pencil, which costs $80 or $130 for the Pencil Pro. ESR's pencil has Find My support, which works with the Find My app and has sound alerts so you can easily find it, and a real-time battery display which shows up on your iPad screen. And of course, writing and drawing is also a great experience. It has palm rejection, tilt sensitivity, and a 1.5mm fine tip for detailed writing and drawing. It also has 30-minute USB-C fast charging, giving you 12 hours of use, and it can be stored as well on the top of the iPad with magnets. And for on-the-go protection, we have ESR's flip magnetic case with built-in pencil holder, and it can be used in a variety of different modes and angles, and you can also even fold the case into the special portrait view mode to use the iPad vertically. And to protect your screen, ESR makes this super easy to install glass screen protector featuring their ultra-fit two-step application process. Putting a screen protector on your iPad has really never been this easy. It's a no-brainer to protect your expensive device. And these accessories are all very affordable, high quality, and help make the iPad experience even better. ESR was also just named to Fast Company's Most Innovative Companies list of 2025, so they know what they're doing. Learn more at the link in the video description, and a huge thanks to ESR for sponsoring this video. Okay, so the biggest question I get about the iPad in general is what can you actually even do with it? Well, a lot. So I use mine all the time for replying to emails, watching videos, writing notes, using social media, and even streaming games using Xbox Game Pass and an Xbox controller directly into Safari. But besides like regular casual use, the thing I use the iPad for the most is creative work. 3D design is one of the areas that the iPad really shines, especially with apps like Shaper 3D and Nomad Sculpt. Using an iPad with a pencil over using my laptop with a trackpad or mouse just feels much more natural. It's easier to pinch, zoom, and really interact and view my designs. It feels like sculpting with clay or working with a very detailed model versus like on my Mac, for example. It just feels a lot more clunky versus using a pencil and my fingers. For quick edits on a photo while traveling, for example, using Photoshop to adjust colors or curves, remove objects using the clone stamp or generative fill is fantastic. It's a great quick photo editing device. And doing illustrations or wallpaper designs in Procreate is a killer experience, and honestly, Procreate is the app that made me fall in love with the iPad in the first place. And really all of these apps and all daily usage feels very fast and smooth on this iPad. Even things like split screen multitasking and floating windows with Stage Manager, everything feels great. And even next to my iPad Pro, I really don't see a difference at all. The other impressive thing here is battery life. For casual day-to-day things, this iPad lasts forever, like over a day or even 2 days of light usage here and there. The processor is efficient, it has a big battery, and also the display is not really that much of a power draw for this device. For more intensive things like using those pro apps that I mentioned earlier, it does of course drain much faster, especially with Shaper 3D. I do find the battery drains quite a bit, especially when I'm on full brightness, but really with any of these more intensive apps, I can still get a few hours of continuous use even with full brightness on, all while the iPad stays cool, doesn't throttle, and feels very fast. The M3 versus the M2 in the previous iPad Air is really not that big of a difference in daily usage. It feels honestly kind of the same, but the overall speed here and the battery life is quite solid. Okay, so to conclude, yes, the new iPad Air M3 model is kind of the exact same thing as the M2 iPad Air. It's just simply a processor refresh with a few other small things as well. But if you are looking to buy a brand new iPad, make it this one. It offers like 80% of things the iPad Pro offers, and that 20%, those features are not really that essential either. You're not missing much going with the Air over the Pro. And look, these days, $400 is $400, which you can put towards accessories or apps or even just save, honestly. But because this M3 Air is so close to the M2 Air, I'd strongly recommend checking Apple's refurbished site to see if you can get a really good deal on an M2 iPad Air. You could probably get like a bigger model or maybe even an iPad Pro from a few years ago. Either way, you're gonna save money. And also be sure to snap up that education discount as well if you want to buy this iPad brand new. The thing is, all of the iPads over the past few years have actually been like really good. And if you have an M1 Pro or an M1 Air, there's still no major reason or major feature to upgrade. And Apple's iPad lineup right now is incredibly solid. Like, they're not doing anything drastically new or different or exciting, but the lineup currently is like really good. The Pro, of course, is for those who want to have the best, thinnest, newest design, the best screen, best performance, everything is top notch. The Air, this device is the perfect middle ground, giving you the almost full iPad Pro experience, except minus the best screen and the thinner design. The base iPad is solid for casual usage, the ability to use iPad OS and apps on a decent screen, and the ability to use an Apple Pencil and keyboard case. And the iPad mini is for on-the-go use, travel, all while being able to draw and write with the Apple Pencil. And they've made an iPad for basically everyone, whether it's your main device you want to use every single day for everything, or it's an accompaniment to your Mac. There really is an iPad for everyone that wants to buy an iPad. And this iPad Air fits perfectly in this lineup for everyone who wants to buy an iPad that does almost everything the Pro does without that Pro pricing. And I think that's what makes this iPad such a great deal. And that's pretty much it. I want to hear your thoughts on this iPad Air in the comments down below. What do you think Apple should add to the next iPad Air to actually make it different from the last two iPad Airs, because they've all kind of been the same at this point? Let me know. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe, and thank you for watching.